Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to work on this top piece right here. And specifically, we're going to work on the extension of the housing for our resilient valve right here. And notice that we have these bolt covers that are also part of the body. And the image references that we're using, they look like simple drawings. But however, if we go to our reference sheet, we are going to be working with references all the time, and this is exactly what we're going to be building right now. Now notice that different resilient valves have different designs. The purpose of these things is to hide the bolts, to protect the bolts from both the top and the bottom. And notice that there's different designs for different styles of resilient valves, and this one is like all one piece. This one is closer to the resilient valve that we are building. Some of them may have 6 bolts. Some of them may have 6 bolts and be in an oval, and on and on. But we're going to be working with our reference right here. Now notice that the top of the resilient valve is usually covered with some sort of a material. If I go over here, right, it looks like they are covered with epoxy, and that is to protect the bolt. However, we can also have them exposed, like right over here, to make our model more interesting. So what I want to show you guys is the traditional way of doing this type of modeling. If I go to my Maya scene, the name of the game is to create a shape that matches our image planes and then extrude an edge around it so we can have control of a bevel, so we can make the area where those two shapes connect either a sharp edge, like something like this one right here, or a softer edge. So we want to maintain the roundness of this connection. So I'm going to go back to Maya. Now traditionally this is done via Boolean techniques and rebuilding the topology. So I recorded a video showing you guys that process and the cons that process has. Time consumption, the bad geometry. To be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of the Booleans in Maya. First, I'm going to show you the video and I'm going to narrate it as to how I did it and why I didn't like it. And then we are going to go into a different technique that we're going to use, where we are going to be using our union found inside of Booleans, right? I'm going to combine two pieces, but I'm going to rebuild this new piece using the Modeling Toolkit's Quad Draw tool. All right, so I'm going to start with my primary shapes. I'm going to use a sphere, but I make my spheres from cubes, so I don't have to deal with the poles at the bottom of the sphere. Then I'm going to snap it to that center point, the center of that top edge, right? That's going to be the axis for the sphere. I cut the top of the sphere, and if you only work with small pieces when you Boolean things, you tend to have less errors. But as you can see, there's always going to be errors with the Booleans. That's why I'm not a big fan of Booleans. So I tried to figure out what's going on with these Booleans. I'm not getting any success. So I delete everything except for the cut in the sphere. And then I tried a straight down extrusion. I snap the points to the top of the edge from the housing that I created. Remember, I want those corners. That's my main goal, is to make sure that the sphere has the same amount of spans that the corner of the housing. I'm going to talk more about edge flows and things like that when I give the demo next on how to use the Quad Draw to pretty much rebuild this. I'm rebuilding the geometry in the traditional way, inserting edge loops, deleting extra edges, looking for quads. What can I salvage as a quad? But remember, the housing, this corner of the housing, it's my guide. And the main issue is that I go from one edge to the top of the sphere where I have two edges. So going from 2 to 1, we're going to have to deviate the edges. Now, this is a lot of work. I'm spending a lot of time when I can do everything using the Quad Draw. And I'm going to show you guys how we can do this really, really fast. All right, so let's start. Let's do our primary shape. So I'm going to go to my polygons. I'm going to create a sphere. And you're probably wondering, why don't you create a sphere out of a cube? The reason why is because I'm not going to use this geometry at all. We're going to use this as a guide. Let me freeze the transformation. Let me go to my custom. I'm just going to freeze the transformation. I do not want to delete the history, right? Because I can go to my polysphere 2 and then adjust my subdivisions right here. And this is what we're going to do. Now, if I move this guy out of the way, this right here is my housing, right? So I want to match these edges right here. So when I hit 3, this will smooth this way, and then the smoothing will follow into the sphere, into our shape right here. Let me go back to Photoshop. Right here, right? So I want the smoothing to follow the shape of the corner of our main housing unit. So back in Maya, let me reset its position, 0, and let me hit 1. To create the middle point of a corner, let's say right here, right? Notice if I go to vertex, it's hard to see where the middle point is. It's going to the middle right now because I've selected 2 vertices, so it's finding out the average for me. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch my modeling toolkit, right, which is going to be our primary tool for this exercise, and I'm going to select the multicut tool. Now, one of the coolest tricks about the multicut tool is that if I hold on a corner as if I was to cut, and if I keep it down and then move it left and right, it's going to give me the percentage of where it is. So notice that if I move to the right, we're going to get really close to the 50%. Now, if I hold Shift key, it's going to give me these snapping points. I have 90, 80, 70, 60, 50. So when I let go of this Shift, right, we go back to manual slide. But if I hold Shift, it's going to restrain it to these points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert one point. I'm not going to make an edge, right? And I'm going to go to the select tool to get out of this operation. And now if I go right mouse button, go to vertex, look at this. I have created a point. Now I'm going to use this point right here, right, to select my sphere, W, and hold V for snap to point. And I'm going to middle drag it on this edge right here so that my sphere snaps to the center, like so. Now I'm going to go to my views, and I know that the side view right here for this image plane is not quite correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to freeze the transformation of this sphere right here. Again, do not delete the history. We're going to use the history right now. I'm going to move this guy somewhere right here. I'm going to scale it so that it matches the drawing. All I want, by the way, is it to match. Okay, so I have to scale correctly on this view, and I have it correctly on this view right here. Okay, so I'm going to select my translate. I'm not going to make any changes on the scale. I'm going to hit 0 so it goes back to that point. And now I can freeze my transformation. It will freeze everything, and it will go back to 1 on my scale. Now, the reason why we don't want to delete our history is because of the following. Now, our objective, right, is to rebuild this topology right here, right? And I'm going to select this edge from here, right? And I'm going to move this down right here. This is where we're going to go from the housing to this shape right here, right? So what I want to do is I want to create a small piece, a small patch from this geometry. So I'm going to do an extrusion, right? I'm going to go to my modeling toolkit, and I'm going to go to my extrude. I'm going to disregard of the position. I don't care that is on the edge because I want it to go straight up. For that, I'm just going to hit W for move tool. That edge is still extruded, and I'm going to move it up, and I'm going to look at my image, and this is where our lip will begin. So now that I've extruded this edge, I'm going to select this face and delete it. I don't care about this. And I'm going to cut these guys from this shape right here. So I'm going to go to edit mesh, extract, and it's going to extract these faces that I had selected into a new piece. Right mouse button, select these 2 guys, delete the history, freeze the transformation, and center the pivot. I have to take this guy away from the layer that is in, which should be this guy right here. So I'm going to select this, go to my outliner, hit F so that it will show me where it is, and middle mouse drag it out of this group. So now notice I can close this layer, hide the housing box and pretty much everything so I can work. And there you have it. The reason why I want to work with a small piece is because we're going to rebuild this shape right here, right? I'm going to go to my side view. I'm going to bring the bolt down right here. Okay, so it's at the same level as the drawing. As you can see, it matches pretty good right here. Now, let me go to this 3/4 view and explain the reason why we want the history. Let me select this edge right here, and I'm going to go and delete edge. We want these 3 edges, 1, 2, and 3, to continue all the way to the halfway point. So if I go to my top view, right, notice that I have this edge right here, and I'm going to make it match to an edge right here. So I want symmetry on my sphere. So right now I have 14, right? So this is not a good symmetry. I have a symmetry right here on the Z, but not on the X. And I want a bigger edge, right? Because we're going to go from here to here. I'm going to take 2, so it's going to be 12. And now notice that I have symmetry both on the X, left and right, and on the Y. This will allow me to delete sections. We don't need this whole group right here. So I'm going to select all these guys, delete them. And I'm going to use this as a guide. Remember, we are at level 1, right? So let me select the top. I don't care about the top. Plus, I want to know where this is going to end. And then the rest, I'm going to extrude it. So I'm going to select these guys, the vertices, and I'm going to move them down. And again, hold V, which is snap to point, middle mouse, and select one of these guys right here. So middle mouse drag. There it is, snapped. So now, these are my pieces right here, right? I'm going to open my housing. I'm going to select these 2 guys. Now I can delete my history, right? I have an edge that I like. This edge right here is probably going to be split into this edge and then one right here. Okay. And then, depending on the width of these edges right here, from here to here, right? I'm going to create quads. So for example, I'm going to create a quad that looks this big, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Right, and then I'm going to have this group right here. So to help me, what I can do is I can select by double clicking on this edge loop, shift, right mouse button, delete edge, delete these 2 guys, right? And see the quads that we have. And never use the move tool or the scale tool when you double click because you may do something weird. All right, so I did a couple of undos. All right, so now if I delete these edges right here, notice that instead of square quads, I'm going to get more rectangles. And if I delete the 3s, I'm going to get almost like triangles. So there's a really cool trick that we can do by moving our edges. If I select this edge right here, this will be a really good candidate for a square quad. But if I had it right here, it would be perfect. So when you select this edge right here, you can go to shift right mouse button, and there's a tool called the slide edge tool. I'm going to hit reset. All right. The way it works is you use your middle mouse button and then you drag it, and notice how it follows the curvature of the edge. It's going to try to retain as much volume as you can. Let me show you what, without the snapping, what it looks like. Again, I'm going to do a middle mouse button and pay attention to the silhouette of this curve right here. So if I do a middle mouse drag, notice that it tries to stay to the curvature of this edge right here. So once I get it where I want, right? So if I delete this edge, I'm going to get a really good square. Okay, I'm going to double click on this guy, shift, right mouse button, delete edge. Okay, so I'm going to get my quads right there. And now for these guys right here, if I delete this edge, double click, shift, right mouse button, delete edge. Right, let me close the tool settings for that. And here we're going to run into a problem. Again, same issue. So I want to build my new topology going from this corner right here, right? And it's going to go up and connect to these guys right here. I'm going to have a connection point right here. Okay, that's not a big deal. All right, so this was the best I could do. I want to keep this the way it is. I'm going to select both of these guys. And when hit 3, this is going to be our objective. Let me turn off the wireframe on the shaded. All right, so this is going to be our objective, because when we hit 3 on the housing, look at that. They will match, the curvature will match. Okay, there's a little gap right now, but that's because this little piece right here It's smaller in height than this guy, no big deal. When I hit 1, notice that they match. Okay, let's hide our housing. And let me show you the coolest thing ever. So I'm going to select these two pieces, right? And we are going to combine them. In my Modeling Toolkit, I'm going to go to Combine, right? So now, technically, they're one piece, okay? And we're going to use these as a template to draw our new geometry on top of. What I mean by that is this. First step was to create the primary shapes. Second step was to try to adjust with the history the topology of our sphere. Then we deleted the top. We don't need the top. And then we readjusted our edge loops to match a topology that we want to follow. And now our next step is to turn this into what we call a live object. Now, if I was to go, for example, let me change the color of my background. Alt B, there we go. If I was to go to a top view, side view, or front view, never a 3/4 view or perspective view, and I selected my quad draw right now, you will notice that to create a quad draw, right, you create 4 points, you move your mouse in between those points, hold shift to see the preview, and then you click with your left mouse button. And this is how we create quads, right? I can create 2 here, do it again. Then I can extend edges by holding tab. I can do 1 edge, or if I hold tab and my middle mouse button, I can do this edge loop and I can get 2 edges. I can move the newly created vertices right here without having to turn this into vertices and having to go to the move tool, right? I can also extend the outer edge, and to get to the options for the quadro tool, you hold the tab key and your right mouse button, and I'm going to select extend border. So now notice when I move my mouse to the edge and I hold tab, it goes all the way around. So with my left mouse button, I can click and drag. Okay, so the quadro is a fantastic tool. Select this guy and delete it. And you will notice that when we have the object by itself, right, our wireframe is bright green because this is the last object that we've selected. Let me turn on my wireframe. If I select this object and I go to live, right, notice that we get this pale green color. Think of live as a way of magnetizing this shape right here. So now when I use the quad draw, notice that I cannot draw on my camera's background. However, when I move it on top of my live object has turned into a object that can attract my quad draw points. And that's how we're going to build it with topology. I'm not going to work on the entire thing. I'm going to work from this group right here. Okay, and I'm just going to rebuild this area right here. And then I'm going to flip it to the opposite side. Now, another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put this guy right here into one of my layers. Once you're in Make Live, you cannot select your object. So what you have to do is you have to go to your outliner, select the object, and deselect the Make Live. And now you can select the object. I'm going to put it on this layer right here, and I'm going to call this one Proxy. Just for now, I'm going to make it red. Okay, and I'm going to go to 1 because I don't want to model this in a smooth preview, right? I want to see where my topology ends. Okay, and once this is selected, make it live again, and there you have it. You cannot select it. All right, so let's get started. Now, we know we want these 3 planes right here, right? So I'm going to do these 2 planes, and then I'm going to worry about the rest. Okay, here we go. So quadro, I'm going to click right here. And what I'm doing is a click and drag. I'm not too worried about having my vertices land on top of the proxy's vertices because after I model this, I'm going to extract this mesh and then I can do a point snap to the proxy. So here we go. And there you go. Now, once I have these 2 quads defined, I'm going to hold shift so I can get my preview, and then I'm going to click here and here, and I can go to a side view. So let me go to the side view. Let me hide my image planes, and let's see what we're gonna do. We want the top and the middle row because they're really good quads, right? So I'm going to click right here, and drag a point to that corner, right? Notice that I cannot go past my geometry that is made live. So I'm going to put another point right here. And this row right here, what I may do, I may put it either halfway right here, or the other thing that I can do, since we're going to add an edge eventually, and we're going to select this edge right here and do a bevel, as long as at the bottom of this plane right here and this other plane, this face right here, match the topology of our proxy, I could move this corner to that point right there, near that point, by just dragging it right here. Because notice that we will get the consistency of the plane. And then once we create the bevel, that bevel is going to support this edge. So I'm going to do that so I can retain this corner right here. So my next point is going to go right here. And I'm going to zoom out. And now I'm going to figure out how this is going to work. I'm going to put one here and one here and then one at the end. And I'm going to move my mouse in the middle, shift, click, click, click. And there we have this edge loop. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to replicate these 3 rows from our sphere, and then I'll figure out how to connect the bottom part. All right, let's do this. Let me go to this view. I can lay one right here, lay another one right here, and I'm going to do a couple of different variations on this retopology so you can see what my method is. And I just noticed right here that I put a couple of points on the opposite side. That's one of the problems about working on orthographic view. No problems. Hold shift and control, and notice what happens when I move my mouse on top of those 2 points. I can delete them. Same thing for deleting a face, right? Shift and control, and you can delete that face. All right, so let's figure this out. Well, we definitely want this face right here. We want this face right here. I'm clicking and dragging on the face, and as soon as I get to the edge, I try to get it right on the edge. All right. So, all right, let's look at this real quick. I want this for sure. I'm not going to put a point here because when I hold the shift key with these 2 plus this edge, like so, it's going to create my polygon faces. Now, the main reason why I wanted to put this object right here, our proxy, in a layer is because you can do a very incredible trick with an object that is made live. I can turn my layer into a template so I can see the wireframe, or I can even hide my layer. And believe it or not, your quad draw points are still gonna ride on this proxy's surface, like so. It looks like I'm putting it somewhere in the distance, but it's actually riding on the face of your proxy. All right, so let me turn on the visibility so I can figure out how this is going to work. So from here, I know that I'm going to have a quad that's going to go from this corner somewhere right here. So I'm going to put a point right here. And then I'm going to have another point right here. Even though this is going to be a middle, meaning that I'm going to have to cut this face, I'm not worried about it. I can move this guy right here, move it to that edge, and I can move this guy right here and put it right in my theoretical middle. All right, so I'm going to have a face right here, one that's going to go from here to here, another one that's going to go from here to somewhere around here. Right, I'm going to try to take advantage of that edge loop, which means that I'm going to need one right here. But let me turn off the visibility, see if we have quads or not. Move the mouse between these 4 points, shift, click with your left mouse button. Okay, I'm going to create this loop right here, and I'm going to create this loop right here, and I'm going to see what I can do. Well, this is really easy. If I put a point in the middle, I can create all 4 quads like this. Shift, left mouse button, shift, left mouse button, shift, left mouse button. And within a matter of minutes, I've created a retopologized version of these 2 shapes right here, right, with the actual topology that I wanted, okay, using the quad draw. Now it is time to preview our new mesh. All right, I'm going to get rid of the wireframe on the shaded right here, and let me hit Q. Go back to object mode. I'm going to hit 3. We get a really nice transition from a, in this case, half a sphere into a plane right there. Okay, fantastic. So it's time to duplicate this on the opposite side, right? And it's going to end up right here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bridge these faces right here. Let me hit 1. Okay, let's do that right now. Okay, I'm going to use either the proxy or this right here. Let me open the proxy. Okay, so I'm going to select this object, delete the history, freeze the transformation. I'm going to center the pivot. And what I want to do, I want to put the pivot in a point, right, that I know is mirrored on the opposite direction, in the 90-degree direction to this face right here. So select this. And I don't think, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do a snap to point. That is because this proxy, it's live. Maya thinks that you want to snap it to this face. But what I want to do is I want to select the proxy, select the object, and I'm going to make it unlive. And I'm going to make sure that my layer is reference. All right, again, select this newly created piece, select the vertex. Here we go. Here's the move tool. I'm going to move this guy out of the way, and I'm going to hold V for snap to point, middle mouse drag it right here, right? I'm dragging it to that edge right there. So this is my known point. Okay, I'm going to make sure that these guys are snapped correctly. I'm not going to worry about the rest. Select the object. Okay. Let me turn this layer into a template so you can see what I'm going to be doing. My pivot point is going to be right here. Okay, I did D and then held the V for snap to point and middle dragged it to this corner. Re-engaged the pivot point by hitting D again. Okay, so let's duplicate this. Go to Edit, Duplicate. Okay, and we know that we're going to flip it in this point right here. So let me turn this into a template. V for snap to point, middle drag to this corner, right? So first, let's mirror it in the negative Z direction. Okay, so I'm going to go to Scale, negative Z. And we have to use the scale when we want to do this. Okay, which direction are we going to rotate this? Well, let's turn on the visibility of the housing. I'm going to rotate it so I can see what's going on. Okay, so I know it's going to be rotated on the negative 90 on Y. Okay, and now I'm going to double check by going to my top view. Aha, there you have it. If I hit 4, okay, I mirrored it in the Z direction, and then I rotated it so that these planes right here match the plane. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to combine these two guys into one piece. Modeling Toolkit, click on Combine. When you do that, you end up with some history. Freeze the transformation, delete the history, center the pivot. And now it is time to bridge these two guys together. Okay, so the way that we bridge things, let me hide this. Okay, and I'm going to go to my perspective view. The way that we bridge this is very simple. There's an order to bridging. Okay, so I'm going to go to the Modeling Toolkit. You want to select both edges, right, in the same order. So I'm going to go top to bottom. So select this guy right here, shift select the other ones all the way to the bottom. And then right here again, shift select from top to bottom. And now we can go to the bridge tool and we're going to get a bridge. To get rid of all those divisions, select the divisions down to 0. And I'm going to select this object. Okay. I'm going to hit 3. And look at this. Let me get rid of the wireframe. We have created a duplicate right here to our proxy. Let's quickly put this together. All right. So I'm going to open the housing unit. I'm going to select everything, go to 1, right there, and hypershade initial shading group. There you have it. I'm going to select these edges right here, and I'm going to extract them by using the extrude tool, move tool, and I'm going to hold V for point, middle mouse button, drag it to the end. That's not what I wanted, so I'm going to go hold the W key, disable keep spacing. Let's do that again. Move it, V, middle mouse button. Perfect. Just gonna make sure that it's also snapped in the X direction. Let's do the same thing for the other side. So hit G to repeat the last tool, which was extrude. W to move. I'm gonna move it towards the X direction. V, and then I'm gonna make sure that it's aligned there correctly. Let's check our topology. All right, so I have an extra edge right here, no big deal. Select these vertices, move them back, make sure that they snap to this point right here, V, middle mouse button, and select these edges, deselect these other ones. Let's do another extrusion, move tool. I'm gonna drag it so that they snap to this point right here. I'm gonna double check on the Z direction, and there you have it, right? We created a new piece, they match. All right, so we are gonna select both of them, delete history, freeze transformation, center pivot. We are gonna go to our combine. Now they're combining to one piece, and again, we wanna weld these edges. I know that these edges are not welded because if I go to my polygons and I go to my border edges, which is found under the displayed polygons border edges, and now I'm gonna go to my edge width and make this bigger so you can see it. All right, so let's weld these vertices right here. Right mouse button, select vertices, and I'm going to do shift right mouse button, gonna go up to merge vertices right here. And then next, all we gotta do is select the next pair, hit G. This one I'm gonna delete. Remember, we use that one to snap the center of our sphere. Proxy, I'm gonna hit G, I'm gonna hit G, G, G. And I'm gonna select my edges right here. I'm gonna make these edges smooth. So select the edges. Let's select these guys right here too. And I'm gonna go shift, right mouse button, soften hard edges, and I'm gonna go soften edges. Now, this edge right here, right? It's the one that we're gonna use to create our bevel. So first I wanna preview, I wanna see what this looks like. So select this guy right here. I'm going to go to my wireframe unshaded and deselect it, and I'm gonna hit 3, and look at that. All right, we have a really clean, very, very, very light geometry. Okay, I'm gonna go to 1. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to extend this top piece right here. Okay, so let me go back to my image plane. Let me bring up my image planes and let me go to the side view. And as you can see, we wanna go up in this direction, and then we're gonna create the lip. Now, looking at my reference right here, notice that this is not perfectly rectangle, right? It comes out this way and then it goes that way, okay? And if you look at our image plane, it does the same thing. There is a part of our housing that's gonna come out forward. That's not a big deal, right? I'm gonna do this edge first, so select all these edges, and to deselect these edges right here, you're gonna hold Control, okay? And I'm gonna extrude up, so shift right mouse button, go to extrude edges, or with the Modeling Toolkit, just go to extrude. I'm gonna get out of the tool, use move, and I'm gonna go up right here. And I'm gonna create the lip really quick. So I'm gonna go to my 3/4 view so you can see what this looks like. And while these edges are selected, I'm gonna go to extrude. Now I am gonna use the tool right here, because as I pull in this direction, right, which is the local translate Z, remember anytime we do a extrusion, Maya is working on the Z, okay? So when I extrude this, as you can see, all right, I want the same 90-degree angle that we have right here and the same distance of the smallest edge. So when I create a bevel, right, my bevel is going to be consistent. I'm not worried about these corners. I'll show you how to fix those. So this is going to be my first edge right there so that it matches this edge right here. Q, I'm going to go to vertices. I'm going to select this vertex right here. W for move tool. V to snap the point. Okay, and I'm going to move this guy in this direction right here. Now I'm going to move this right here and hold the middle mouse button so that it snaps right here, and then select these two guys and snap them in the X direction while holding the and middle mouse button. So now I can select those, hit G, which was the last operation, which was merge vertices. I'm going to select this edge, hit delete. Now let's do that on the opposite side again. I'm going to select these vertex right here. Okay, I'm going to move it up and then move it in this direction. Now I'm going to select this one, this one's, and this one's. Move them in this direction, hold the middle mouse button, and then these guys, move them in this direction, select all three, and shift right mouse button, merge vertices to center, select the edge and delete. Okay, we got quads all the way around, and now we can create a really cool bevel by selecting these edges right here. So I'm gonna double click this edge, shift double click this edge. I'm gonna go around this way, shift double click this edge, and I'm gonna go in this direction, shift double click this edge, and let's give it a bevel. So I'm gonna go to my bevel, and I'm going to increase my fraction as much as I can, which will be right here. Okay, this is determined by the distance between this edge right here, which was the shortest distance. And if I hit 3, right, I'm gonna look at it and I'm gonna compare it to my reference. Okay, so let's go to our Photoshop. There's my reference. It's hard to see right here, but I think my bevel is actually pretty good. All right, this one is bigger. Okay, but when I'm looking at the references, I don't need a huge bevel. And look, I get the bevel all the way around my piece. Okay, I'm gonna hit 1, see if there's something I can do. Now, this part right here, right, we have an issue because we have one face going to two faces, right? So what's gonna have to happen is that we're gonna have to add another loop. So I'm gonna go to my history, click on poly bevel, and I'm gonna have to add another segment. I'm gonna have to go to 2, right? So that we can get a quad. Now, by adding another segment, it's gonna make our bevel sharper. So let me double check on that. I'm gonna go to object, hit 3. Oh, actually, that's not bad at all. It's actually pretty decent. All right, and let's see if I can fix this somehow. Let me go back to the beginning of time. So the issue is this little guy right here, okay? I cannot go any further because that is the shortest distance of all my faces that are part of this bevel. So what I could try moving this edge right here out, so I can hit the move tool, and I'm going to take advantage of the new powerful pivot point adjustment. So I'm going to hit D, and I'm going to hold the control key and orient it, right? If we don't hold the control key, we have an alignment, but if I hold the control key, I can orient it based on something. So if I hold control on this face, it's going to orient my pivot point based on the direction of this face. So I can hit D again, and now I can pull this guy out like so. When we do this, right, and I'm gonna do the same thing for these vertices right here, this one and this one, and I'm gonna hold D, control, click on this face, and then hit D, and I'm gonna move these guys out of the way a little bit. I'm gonna hit 3 so I can see how my smoothing looks. It's not horrible. I'm getting a little bit of pinching right here, which I can fix. But now we're gonna get a better bevel. So let me go back to 1. Excellent. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is the following. I'm going to fix this edge right here. There's a fantastic tool in Maya. If I select this edge right here, and I go shift right mouse button, I can go to edit edge flow, and it will fix this edge based on the curvature of the adjacent edges. Okay, so that's good right there. It looks pretty good. All right, let's try that bevel again. So I'm gonna hit Q, select the object. I always love deleting my history when I do that. And let's select those edges. So I'm gonna select edge, double click on this edge right here. Never use the move tool, rotate, or scale when you double click an edge. Use the selection tool, shift, double click here, shift, double click here, go around, and shift, double click here. And let's try to add another bevel. Modeling Toolkit, bevel, and we know that we need to go as big as we can, so I'm going to increase the fraction. Okay, right there. The bevel looks bigger than before, but now I can add that extra segment so that we can take care of those corners so we don't get a triangle like right here. Okay, and I'm going to go right mouse button and I'm going to hit 3 and I'm going to see what this looks like. And there you have it. This is how we've been able to create a proxy using simple shapes, basic shapes like circles and cubes and things like that. And then we made our proxy live, right, by selecting the object and going to the make live option right here, right? And notice that when we do that, we got this really cool green wire. And then once we did that, we used the quad draw to snap our quad points, and we rebuild the geometry taking in consideration the main housing's edges right here, so that we got the same bevel into the area right here where we combine these two shapes. And what I'm going to do next, I'm going to finish the top piece, and I'm going to use the same technique, right, for the top pieces right here, which are rounded. But as you can see in our reference, right, look like this. So it's going to be a cylinder, which I'm going to merge together with this piece right here. So I'm going to have to build this piece first and then add these guys right here. Okay, I am going to see what this looks like right here. So I may have to do the same thing here. Let me go back to Maya. Let's look at, yep, we have this interesting housing right here. As you can see, right, we have this upside down bucket, but we also have this shape right here, which looks like a rectangle. There you have it. Okay, let me zoom out and let me see if I can find something that is closer to what we're doing. No, that's pretty much it. So what we're going to be doing is this guy next, right here. And I will see you guys in the next video.